I more or less said goodbye in my heart, not to the Lib Dems, but to Wales. I said, this is because if I stayed inside, I'd be yet again back to the 70s, causing trouble, fighting the leadership, and causing trouble and splitting the Lib Dems in Wales, and I didn't want that because the whole movement was. I had invested far more than Tom Ellis and myself had invested far more than anyone else to get to 1988, and I wasn't going to smash that under any circumstance. So I said to myself, well, I'll just become a member in the Gower constituency for a short while, and I'll look for a seat somewhere else. I'll move out to the Welsh scene, and I'll try and get onto a more national base because of my speaking in the country. I'll be very, very well known. So I then topped the poll for the National Committee of the Lib Dems. Eventually I became Vice Chair of the Policy Committee with Ashton as the Chairman. Now that was a big surprise to everyone because I beat Roger, I keep on forgetting his name, who was an interim leader, Robert McLennan, who was for a short while the leader of the SDP until the merger. So Owen gave up. Once we agreed to merge, once the vote had taken place to merge, Owen resigned. So they had to find an interim leader, and McLennan became the interim leader. Now, in order to work out now the elections for various policies, for various positions, in about a year afterwards, I stood for the Policy Committee. I had topped the poll for the National Committee, and I beat him to the chairmanship, of the Vice Chair of the Policy Committee. And Ashton three times rang me in my office in Swansea, begging me to not to stand, because then McLennan would have been the Vice Chair, because he was second on the ballot. But I didn't do it. On reflection, I should have done it, because I couldn't go to London every month. It was impossible. I could go on the odd occasion, but it was a bad decision. But what I did do was stand for president with Ian Wrigglesworth and myself, both ex-PPSs to Roy Jenkins, and Des Wilson, the great campaigner from years ago, the Liberal. And I had a good vote. I had about 12,000 votes. And the winner had about 17,000. And I had a very, very good vote. Tremendous campaign. I went all over the country, and Winston Roderick was the treasurer. So he was the guy who was collecting the money from everywhere. And Ian Evans from Anglesey, a close friend of mine, was my agent. And we did very, very well. So at that time then, it was now about 1990, well, I thought I'd go for a seat, and there were two potential, Hereford and Bath. And I was in the running for both. And Bath wanted me to be the candidate, but I, for some reason, fancied Hereford, because it was bang on the border with Wales. As you pass that Ogilvy, you're into Hereford. And I knew from background that there are a lot of people of Welsh descent who had moved over to Hereford during the Depression of the 30s and after the Second World War. So there's a big influx of people with a Welsh connection there, right? What I didn't reckon on was the carryover of the wars between England and Wales over centuries. I won to become candidate in Hereford by one vote against a very, very powerful city councillor, David Short. I only won it by one vote. How close have these elections been in my life, eh? I probably should have said no again, said one vote wasn't enough, was it? It was a split party. And he was there as leader of the Hereford City Council. I should have said no and gone for Bath. It's the old thing I tell you, don't go there. You know, I really needed a minder. I should have had, throughout my political life, at my side, a minder all the time, telling me, how a bit now, let's stop and think. I didn't do enough of that. I've been an impulse politician, I've been a conviction politician, through and through. You know, what's on my heart is on my mind. If it's on my mind, it comes out of my mouth. There is no filter somewhere. You know, I needed a filter. I needed somebody as a filter. That is absolutely correct. And I should have said no, okay? But as returning to this England-Wales thing, well, anybody who knows about English-Welsh history, you know, the boundary between England and Wales has been fought over for centuries. From the 1200s on, back and forth, and Hereford was sometimes in Wales, and then not in Wales. So one day, I realised this, there are going to be people in Hereford who are not going to vote for me because I'm Welsh. Not because, you know, even Liberals, because I'm Welsh, see? And I was taken down by the mayor of Hereford at the time, and I again had the highest Liberal vote in Hereford probably ever. The winner, the Tory was 26,000 and I was 23,000. It was a close one thing. And I'll come to that too. Kinnock backed that up as well, actually, with his Sheffield speech, where he did this African war dance sort of thing. We're all right, we're all right. Remember that speech? Because he thought he'd won the election. The opinion poll said the night before Kinnock was going to win. And he backed it up for himself. He should have behaved quietly. He frightened people. And the Sun had that picture of him inside a lamp. Last man out of Britain, turn off the light. Yeah. He invited it. And I knew it in Hereford. On the weekend, Ashdown and Bill Rogers had been down. And the reception in Ross and Wye and in Hereford was unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was like a by-election. The crowds were in their hundreds in both towns. But I was very confident now. I went back on the Wednesday to the two places before the election, on the bike, on the open air jeep, which we always use. Quiet. People sometimes not even turning to look. They were turning their vote, weren't they? They were changing. Kinnock had frightened them all. And people realised, do we want this person as Prime Minister? And he was unelectable, really. And when it came to the crunch, they wanted Labour to win. I have no doubt about that. But they could not do it and give it to Kinnock, who was he? The original militant, the left-winger, anti-NATO, anti-Europe, anti-House of Lords. And whatever he said, people would never forget that. They would never forget those things. Same problem now for Ed Balls and Miliband. They are part of the regime that mucked up the economy in the last 3 years under Gordon Brown.